Does it bother you when a restaurant menu does not have pictures of the food?
I think that's quite ridiculous. Now that you mention it, I was just, and I think it's just such a bad move because, when you're scrolling through DoorDash and you want Chinese food, you're going to go with the one that shows you what you're going to get.
Do you want to be part of the podcast? Go to shanesbraindomain.com and click on the Aphantasia section. There you will find a question or prompt and an opportunity to contribute your thoughts and experiences. Simply record and submit your response, and you could be featured on a future episode. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I am your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain. And today we're talking with the one and only Rebecca James. Welcome to the show, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking. All right. Well, let's just dive in here. Why don't you start out by just telling us a little bit about what you do for a living?
I am a teacher to high schoolers. I've been a chef, worked in accounting, inventory control, kind of one of those jack of all trades, master of none type deal. I am going back to college this semester, though, to do medical billing and coding because I can do it from home.
Okay, very cool. All right, what about other interests and hobbies? What else do you like?
I like to sing and paint, anything creative, go camping. But, I go in a tent, but definitely air mattress, too.
Right.
Swimming, fishing here and there, just kind of whatever I can get up to. I'll, try to keep busy.
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the Apple Graph. If you would like to view the Apple Graph to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to view the Apple Graph for whatever reason, it is a graph divided into 6 sections. In the number 6 section, there is a very detailed image of a red apple. In the number 5 section, it is the same image but with less detail. Number 4 is still in color but has less detail and more basic shapes instead of detailed hues and gradients. Number 3 is the less detailed apple, but in gray tones without the color. Number 2 is a simple outline of the apple. And number 1 is blank, indicating no visualization whatsoever. This is called aphantasia. This first thing, I'd like you to just play along with me a little bit here and visualize a red apple in your mind.
Yeah, that's how I found out I can't. the red apple.
All right. So just take a quick look at this graph here and tell me which one of those best represents what's happening in your mind.
Yeah, that's a 1.
Okay.
Nothing.
All right. If you can, real quick, just describe, other than the 1, the nothing, can you describe any more about what was happening in your mind when you tried to do that?
Right. My husband and I have been having this conversation a lot lately because I just found this out a couple months ago and I'm 35, that it's black, for me. I just tell him it's just a black screen. Like there's nothing there. And last night we were kind of talking about it because he knew I was going to do this today. I keep trying to explain to him what it's like. You think it would be the easiest thing to understand, like it's just black, but because I think their minds are so active, it's really hard. And I asked him, what's the recipe for cereal? And he's like, cereal and milk. And I'm like, did you see cereal and milk or did you just know? And he's like, well, I see the bag. And I'm like, okay, well, just don't see it. Do you I just no. Like it's more like memory.
Is there any difference in the thought between your eyes open or your eyes closed?
No.
When and how did you discover that you have aphantasia? Just tell your story a little bit.
Right. So just a few months ago, I was scrolling through, doom scrolling through Instagram videos and something pops up about the red apple. And I looked at my husband and was like, do this. And he can do it just fine. And I did not believe it. I did not believe him. And we had this huge discussion, and I texted all my siblings about it. I've got like 4 of them. And turns out 2 of them are also the same way I am, which kind of correlates into some minimal research I've been doing, which is that it kind of clusters in families, and they don't really know if it's trauma or not. And it was a bit traumatic for us growing up. But so I started, diving a little deeper into videos and finding support groups. And my husband wakes up the next day and I'm telling him, I joined all these support groups last night. And he kind of chuckles. And I'm like, well, of course you don't get it. But I cried for like an hour because I just think back on all the times when I've always been successful at work, but I bust my bottom, and I've always been a little slow to catch on to something. But if I see you do it twice, I've got it forever. And
Right.
I'm like realizing I'm running on memory, and it's not fair.
Right.
But yeah,
right.
that's how I found out.
Okay. Other than the 2 siblings, anyone else in your family that you know of have aphantasia?
I asked my mom and my dad. They're both fine. Stepmom's fine. All of my siblings' spouses, they're fine. And I told my doctor, and he's like, makes sense. Fantasy, Tasia. Yeah, no fantasy. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. But
Right. I've talked to Adam Zeman on the podcast before, who is the one that coined that phrase. In his mind, what he was trying to convey with the word aphantasia is without a mind's eye.
right. It's a little offensive. I do have an imagination, but I guess that's the best way to put it. Is there isn't, we don't I don't have an imagination the way that they do.
Exactly.
I think like halfway through realizing, what was going on, I looked at my husband and said, wait. So when they talk about people imagining other people while they're sleeping together, do you imagine anyone? And he was like, no. And I'm like about to cry. And I'm like, you better never.
Yeah.
Not right here, Buster.
Yeah. So I had a similar experience. I've known about aphantasia for a long time, way before it had a name and the people were talking about it. I discovered it in 1997. So I've known most of my adult life that I can't picture things that most people can. But again, with these words, we internalize them, right? And so in my way, I've always had an imagination. I'm very, like you, very creative, very imaginative, you would say, And when I first heard someone say that this thing is called aphantasia, and aphantasia means without an imagination, I was like, hold on a minute. I feel like I have an imagination, right? But the more I have delved into this and talked to people and better understood what they mean by an imagination, by that definition, yeah, I don't have one. I have one in my way, but I don't have one in that way, for sure.
You're like, okay, fine, you win, but I still think about cool stuff too.
Right. Okay. As far as you can remember, have you always had aphantasia?
Definitely. I mean, I feel like I would have known, if I could at one point and then I couldn't. And it's just kind of always been the same way. I guess that as it comes to mind, the thing that would let me know the most that I've always been this way is my dreams. I've always explained them as they're so vivid. I wake up, I know exactly what happened, But I've always told my husband, I don't have any face. They're not faces. Like there's no faces in my dream. And in the dream, it's not like I'm looking at, a figure, with no face. And I know it's no face and it's creepy. It feels just like a normal, day in the life of, Rebecca. But I suppose the reason why my dreams are like that is because I'm not actually seeing anything, right? It's like straight memory. And you can't dream about something you haven't seen before. So I don't know. I guess that would be my basis there.
I didn't quite understand you there. Are you saying your dreams are visual or not?
No. So I think to me that they've always been visual. I've always explained it like it's like watching a movie, but it's not anything that I'm actually seeing. It's more just like knowing, like I could tell you what happened in that movie last night. Right. But like,
Okay.
there's never any like faces because they'll ask me, oh, who was there? And I'm like, and so then at that point, it's kind of like, well, did I even really see anything? And it really is just like this idea.
Okay. So if I asked you to compare your dreams to the apple graph, would it still be a 1?
See, that's so hard because like I feel that's so hard I don't know if I really know the answer to that because I know it wouldn't be the bottom. It might be more of like a gray, like the gray apple, because I feel like I'm not seeing anything, but whenever I go to remember like something that happened yesterday, I can remember my dream in the same manner. Right. So I think I'm just thinking it. I'm going to tell you, I do not know.
No, that's fine. I have the same problem describing how my dreams manifest. I can't quite put my finger on it either. Can you tell if they're in color at all?
Yeah. Literally like remembering a movie or like, I mean, when you say seeing, it's like, how do you even really know what you see while you're asleep kind of vibe? But it's like in color. It's like remembering a movie.
Okay. Can you tell if your dreams are in first person or third person?
It's like narrator, but I'm not a narrator. If that definitely like a third person, definitely. If I happen to be in the dream, like I could be any person, and it's just like I'll like pop in and out of like knowing. Like if 3 people are arguing, I'll feel like I'm the one being yelled at, right? And then it kind of just switches back to like third person. Like it's so weird. It makes kind of like the PTSD trauma dreams a bit more difficult, but I've gotten to where I can wake myself up from a dream and get up for a little bit, but I have to get up or I'll go right back into like the same dream. So I have to get up for a little bit, munch on some cereal, and go right back to sleep.
Wow, that is a very interesting description. Thanks for that. All right. Does having aphantasia affect your mental health at all, either positive or negatively?
That's also a hard one. I wish I would have like done more research on it by now to give a better factual answer. But just off, what I'm feeling, I did dig a little, and it's not categorized as a disability. And I do strongly believe one day it will be, because I can, off the top of my head, just think of things where it has made it extremely hard. And just because we can overcome that and maybe do better or do equal as people that don't have it doesn't mean that it's not debilitating. They say it's just a different way of kind of living your life, but it's not just a different way. If you're taking there's 2 ways to get to McDonald's from your house. Either one, you're still on a road, you're still seeing the sky. This isn't a different way. It's like tunneling underground. That's a whole different ballgame.
Okay. So you believe that it will be a disability at some point?
I do. Yeah. One day. I just think, like you said, when you were growing up, no one really talked about it. There wasn't a name. I genuinely feel for you, because when you found out, you couldn't just dive into research, or support groups and feel at least some comfort from that, or know for sure exactly what it is, but I think there is some development on it now. And I think that the number of people that have it will start to grow, because 35 had no idea. So the word will get around more, I believe, and they'll do more research.
Okay. I want to talk about this a little bit more. I find this interesting, and I haven't talked to anyone about it a whole lot. So let's dive into this disability question a little bit. So here's a quick definition that I found. I'm just going to read it, and we can just talk about it. Let's just talk about this, because personally, I've never considered it a disability, but I am an open-minded guy, and I want to have this discussion. So it says a disability is generally considered a physical or mental impairment that significantly limits one or more major life activities, preventing substantial work for extended periods, and can include conditions like visual and hearing impairments, chronic illness, mental health conditions like PTSD, depression, autism, intellectual disabilities, and physical impairments like arthritis,
Legal definitions like the Americans with Disability Act and Social Security Administration rules focus on limitations in daily functions like walking, seeing, thinking, remembering, or work-related activities lasting over a year. So as I read through that, sometimes I think, yeah, it's not a disability. And then other times I think, oh, well, yeah, it does kind of check some of those boxes a little bit. So again, I talked to Adam Zeman about this a little bit, and he doesn't consider it a disability either. He just sees it as an intriguing difference, right, in human experience. And I mean, I guess you could say that about a lot of things. But one of the things that we do here on this podcast is we talk to everybody, anybody and everybody, no matter where they fall on the spectrum. And I think that some of those things like PTSD is mentioned and things like thinking or remembering, it affects that. But I would say on the opposite end of the spectrum, hyperphantasia, the opposite of us, the extreme visualizers, I think they check some of those boxes too, right? So at what point do you draw the line? What are your thoughts on all that?
Right. So I think the very first thing that kind of stood out to me would be when it kind of interferes with day-to-day life, right? And kind of sets you apart from the rest of people, something you should kind of been born with. And whenever I was trying to get into the nursing program, there's this class called Anatomy and Physiology. And basically you memorize not just every single bone, right? You've got to memorize, like if there's if the bone looks a little different on one side, there's a name for that. And you got to know that, right? So I'm sitting here thinking that's cheating, that they can just kind of like look at what they've read, what they know, and that's cheating. So that would kind of stand out to me because that's not something that we're able to use. It also kind of said it when it comes to like sight. And I mean, it definitely takes sight. So I think those two things would kind of really stand out to me. Just following instructions, maybe, when someone shows you something, you're going to need to see it more than once or twice. So basically, if you're working on memory.
Yeah, and I agree. It definitely has some challenges, some downsides to it. But I feel like some of the other sides can be as well. And we'll talk a little bit later about some upsides and downsides. But when you talk about, these careers, I talked to another person. She says she wasted 10 to 15 years of her life trying to be an architect. She said it was so hard. I had to put in so much effort. And she said, then I talked to my colleagues and they're pulling it up in their head. They're rotating it around. She's like, if I could do that, it would have been so much easier on me. And I wouldn't have been an architect. I would have chosen something else. So those things are definitely real and those challenges are definitely there. But it's so individual that it's hard to put a blanket statement on it because, for example, I'm a graphic designer and have been for, 25 years. Whenever I'm talking to people, that's the first thing they say. If you have aphantasia, how in the world can you be a graphic designer? That assumption that somehow I cannot do that because of aphantasia is there, and it's a false assumption. It's a false conclusion. I can do it. I'm good at it. I just don't do it the way they would do it. I don't do it the way they imagine I would do it, but I can still do it. And there's so many examples like that where people with aphantasia are excelling in their chosen fields and doing very well. So it's an interesting conversation to have. And I'm glad you brought that up and brought that in. And I think it's an important discussion to continue to have. So thank you for that. Anything else you want to say about that before we move on?
Yeah, just to wrap it up on my end, I definitely think when it comes to graphic design and writing novels, and because I like to dabble myself, not professionally at all, but I'll see something and just make a cool poster for fun. And I think it definitely gives you an edge because it pushes us to design and create whenever normally if maybe we didn't have it, we wouldn't because we can't see it. We've got this idea, we've got this concept and we want to see it or we want to write it out. And I think, it definitely gives you an edge for sure.
All right. How do people react when you tell them about aphantasia?
They do not believe me. And I have to be like, no, like there's tests and there's this whole pupil thing. Like if you hold a light up to your pupils and you say to imagine different things, there shouldn't be much pupil movement at all. And then after that, they're fascinated a couple questions later and then it fizzles out. And then it's like, like nothing ever happened.
Right. I recently talked to a couple that I've had on the podcast a couple of times, and one of them has aphantasia, the other one has hyperphantasia. So we're talking about the relationship dynamics. And they said when we first discovered it, we were like, oh, big deal. You can see an apple, I can't. And then they said, but over time, as we've discussed it, we see how it affects our relationship all day, every day in all these different beautiful ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of people, when they first hear about it, I don't think they really understand the depth of what it can mean.
Definitely. My husband was, he's from Wales, but he was in the British military for about 10 years. And there's some job called Pathfinder, right? So if it comes to GPS directions, anything, that's his department. So it really is just kind of like recognizing where our strengths and weaknesses are and just kind of letting the other one lead there. If he says it's left, it's left. It's been a running joke that whatever way it's supposed to be, I always think it's the opposite. And I'm thinking maybe because in my mind, I'm not oriented the right way or something. But it just was so spot on that anytime I got lost before they had GPS, if I thought it was a left, I'd take a right and I'd get home.
All right. What about the other senses? Do you experience any of the other senses in your mind?
No. So that's something, we also covered is our, talking with him is there's not, I think I was Googling where there's like feelings and like you can hear things and smell things and no, no. And I guess that kind of leads me to when I think about having like PTSD and they say it's like a superpower, against PTSD. And maybe because I've never experienced it in the same way other people have, I disagree. But to me, I guess because there isn't anything visual, there isn't any sound, there isn't any smell, it's just straight feeling. And it's like, you're there, like you're remembering exactly how it felt. And, because it's just memory, like, you think at least that you're remembering it exactly as it was. And so it can be pretty hard, but I will say that I can like truckle on through Walmart, like nothing's going on if I'm having a flashback, kind of as they call flashback. So, and I suppose whenever, you've got some pretty hard cases where these guys come back from military and they have one, it's just crashing down on them. So it's not like they could just keep moving. So I don't know, as I hear myself speak, maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I guess it is a bit of a defense, but it hurts.
Even though our minds or bodies may be developing aphantasia for these defense mechanism reasons, it doesn't mean that the experience doesn't now manifest in feelings or however it comes. So how would you say it manifests for you? What if you could describe it the best you can?
I guess the best way to kind of say it would be like I kind of zone out. And it seems, I was talking to my therapist about it, and it seems to happen more frequently while I'm taking a bath. So I play music now. But when I don't have anything else, to think about, it'll kind of flood my mind. And I just feel like I'm right back in that same place and I'm feeling the same way. And, I'm not hearing anything, but I know what's being said. I remember what was said. And it feels like a movie without the audio and visual. I don't know. I don't know how that would work, but
I understand what you mean by that. I know most people probably wouldn't, but I understand what you mean by that. That's one of the ways aphantasia is described a lot of times. It's like it's a computer without the monitor. And that kind of resonates with me a little bit. Everything is still working. It's just the visuals turned off. So does it feel like you're reliving the memory?
Definitely. When I get like a flashback, it's just like a thought, right? It's not that I'm recognizing it any different from thinking about going to the kitchen. So, I don't know, about 3 seconds into the thought, my heartbeat, kind of like raises and I, start having a little difficulty breathing and I'm sad and my body just starts hurting. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's, not thinking about it. And then you can't just delete the thought. You have to replace it with something to like connect neural pathways or something. So I'll immediately think about my husband, which I like to talk about a lot. When, my mantra when I met him became think about the Welsh boy. And I can remember like having to break up with my ex who's like in jail. And when he would call, I realized very quickly that it wasn't love that I was feeling, it was fear. And I didn't know the difference until I got a call, from a healthy relationship. Right. So I know I'm about to have to like answer the phone. And I was just like, think of the Welsh boy. And then just completely calm. So that's how it feels. And I kind of have to have like a good thought to replace it.
Hey, fill the world with good vibes and positivity with our new Soul Relief brand t-shirts. Check it out at shanesbraindomain.com. Do you feel like your memories are accurate?
See, they can't possibly be, but I do. I've gotten to the point where like what people say, I know what people say. Let me tell you, like I can remember. I'll be like, I know exactly what you said on the 10th of September. So, but I also know that my mind's filling the blanks on a lot of things. But yeah, it feels like it is.
Okay. So on that same note, do you think you would make a good court witness?
Man, now that's up for debate, isn't it? Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, how could I really remember it? Well, I mean, you can't see it, but I guess that would lead me to think like how, when it comes to being able to see things, how much filler do they put in? Did they really see the door? Because for me, with working on a working memory, you kind of mostly just remember what you know, right? I'm not seeing a house here. I would be like imagining a man walking through the door. So I would assume that my memory of the door and the man are pretty spot on. I would say so. Yeah. I think it would be a good witness to what we did see.
Right. Okay. How would you describe how your mind stores information?
I've known about the house theory for a long time, where you like visualize putting stuff like in a house and putting your memories in it. It never worked for me. And, now I know why. When it comes to memory, it's just kind of in there. It comes to me when I need it. And so I've always explained the way that I think to like a therapist about ADD, like an intersection. And when I don't have my medication, there's no traffic lights. But whenever I do have my medication, there's traffic lights. Every thought has a turn, in its own little pathway. Things flow kind of smoothly. But when I don't, it's very much like just constant thought. Like I'm doing the dishes and I'm already planning dinner. And at the same time, I sing a song in my head the majority of the day, just to kind of be able to focus on working.
Okay. Do you associate your mind with an area or a space?
No, because like, where would I put it?
Right.
It's just, yeah.
So what about if you're trying to remember something? In our society, we have that phrase, search your mind. And I think that goes back to the house thing you were talking about. I think a lot of people experience it that way. But do you feel like you can search your mind? How does that work for you?
I've always kind of like looked off because it helps me focus and think. To me, searching my mind is really just kind of like waiting for the thought to appear.
Right. It kind of goes back to the computer without a screen thing. You're asking the computer to do a task, but you don't know how it's doing it. It's like doing it behind the scenes, and it just provides the information. It just pops up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. I like to talk about the different words and the phrases that we use in our society. Again, we've all kind of internalized them to mean what they mean to us. But when I first started interviewing people, I was using different words, and the visual people would say, wait a minute, when you use that word, it makes me think this way. And when you use this word, it makes me think a different way.
Right.
So the 4 phrases I want to talk about is visualize it, imagine it, picture it, and think of it. Do all 4 of those kind of mean the same thing to you? Is there any difference?
I think would be the only one that kind of like stands out to me. The other three would kind of just be kind of in the same category, but think is quite a bit different. I think the first three is just kind of like what I do all the time. But if I'm going to sit down and like think about it, that's different. You know, if I want to write a short story, it's the first three, just let it flow out, keep typing kind of vibe. But then whenever, you know, you print it off and you take a red pen to it, and I'm thinking about it, like, could I have used a better word? Does a comma go here?
Great description. I love that. That's beautiful.
I like the vindication. Finally, I'm seen. Thank you. I'm like, it's cool to talk to somebody else that has it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's really cool. What about this one? I find this one interesting. This is kind of a new one I've been asking people. Does it bother you when a restaurant menu does not have pictures of the food?
I think that's quite ridiculous. Now that you mention it, I was just, you know, and I think it's just such a bad move because, you know, when you're scrolling through DoorDash and you want Chinese food, you know, you're going to go with the one that shows you what you're going to get. Why would you not have a picture?
Yeah.
Good question.
Right. Okay. If I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant, can you successfully accomplish that task?
Absolutely not, because although I can't see it, I'm already thinking about it. Now I'm thinking about the Dumbo movie where all the elephants are like dancing around in like the LSD part or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting because, you know, you just said, you know, it's nice to talk to somebody else who has this. But again, we're so different. When you get into some of these details, the differences really start to emerge. And I have no problem not thinking of a pink elephant.
Are you for serious?
Because I'm serious. When that instruction happens, the first thing I register is don't. And then they don't think of a pink elephant. And I say, okay. And then I don't.
Analytical versus like neurospicy, maybe?
Right. Because my aphantasia manifests kind of in a different way. It's very chill. My thoughts are so distant and vague, they're hardly there. And so it's very easy for me to kind of go into this nothing place where there's no thoughts. And so, like I said, that word don't is registered first. And so I know how to get to that nothing place. And it's very easy for me to just not think of it.
You have executive function. You can, you're like a goalie in your mind. That's cool.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? That's why I love to have these conversations, because with aphantasia, I realized up front, okay, we're all different, right? But then at the same time, I started having these assumptions that everyone with aphantasia was like me.
Right.
And that's just not the case either. Once you delve into the details, there are definitely some similarities, some things we can relate. Oh, yeah, that's exactly like me. But then there's others where it's completely different.
So interesting, like how that relates to like psychology and sociology and like what could be the factors there. It's pretty hardcore.
Right. That's why I think having these discussions are so important, especially if you're in a, you know, committed relationship with somebody, or you're having a teacher-student relationship or a counselor relationship. These things need to be talked about and discussed, because you never know what somebody's going to say sitting across from you until you ask them the questions, right?
Right. I think it would be so interesting to see if you take all the video footage you have, right, and you pump it into an AI and then ask it to make diagnoses and give them their own names, just what it would think. I'm just curious, like what it would pop out, right? Like if it shows similarities here and there.
Yeah, I should probably work on that. That's a good idea.
Pump it in, just see what it is.
All right. What does the phrase "I can't unsee it" mean to you?
Man, that's so funny. We were just talking about this last night because am I allowed to say something explicit? Not too explicit, but.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So me and husband, we've been obsessed with watching like 90 Days the Other Way lately. It's like the immigrants who marry like an American person, but the American person goes to like their country in this one. And there was these two guys that got married, and my husband, he goes, "Oh, you know that saying that's harder than a dick on a wedding night?" He was like, now we could say that's harder than 2 dicks on a wedding night. And I was like, baby, don't give me that mental image. And he was like, I thought you said you can't see. And I was like, I still know what I'm just saying what y'all say. Like, don't make me think about it.
Right. Okay. So in your way, it has meaning, that phrase.
Definitely. Because, I didn't know this whole time that, like, when they tell you picture this. So in my mind, I'm picturing it. I'm imagining
Right.
it.
Okay. In general, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
It's black. Like, it's always black. At night, I do try now to try and envision, vision, picture, whatever it may be. But yeah, it's just the kind of like lights. Like you can, like the aurora lights over Alaska. If I like focus good enough, it's just like kaleidoscope lights.
Okay. That's pretty cool. So if you just focus enough with your eyes closed, you can start seeing those lights.
It's almost like, well, I could close my eyes and see them regardless. But it's almost like not focus on it. Like you have to see past it. Like, and then I can kind of get like a glimmer of, like the lights, and then they'll start just kind of like just moving around and kind of like a pulsing type vibe. But if something looks a little cool, like this light looks a little brighter, maybe it's more blue than the rest of the whites, and I like dart over to look, that's gone.
Well, that's cool. There's another difference. I've never experienced anything like that. We've talked a little bit about the mind's ear, I sometimes call it, the sense of being able to hear in your mind as well. And we have phrases in our society associated around this as well. And one of those is inner monologue. Do you feel like you have an inner monologue?
Man, it's constantly going. When I do take my ADD meds, it's definitely a lot better. But like I said, I'll kind of like plan everything out in my mind. It really is like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. But if I wait 10 minutes, then he'll be done eating and I can take his bowl with mine on my way to the kitchen. So it's like, when it's not planning, it's a song or, a thought of, oh, that would be a great idea for a book or.
But it's not audible in any way. It's quiet thoughts.
Yeah. I know it's my voice, but there's no voice, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Are your thoughts up close and personal, distant and vague, or something else? How would you describe them in that way?
I would just say up close and personal.
Okay. You've already talked about these next two questions a little bit, but I'm going to ask them anyway, see if there's anything else. Do your thoughts happen one at a time or many at once?
Many at once, definitely. And I just kind of like pick the one, kind of simultaneously pick the one I like the most and just keep moving down a path with that one. And then it becomes more like solidarity, like more like that's my single focus. Kind of like picking what I want to make for dinner. I can open the cabinet and I can like imagine we've got enough for spaghetti and pizza and chicken Alfredo. But the second I like chicken Alfredo better, now I'm thinking, okay, let me get the noodles and the sauce.
Okay. I like that. Do you feel like you have control over your thoughts?
I didn't think so for a long time until I started kind of really getting into cognitive behavior therapy, which is basically like if you tell your therapist that you're acting like an a-hole, they'll tell you you're acting like an a-hole, and then they'll give you a behavior that would be better. I think initially you're not responsible for every thought that pops into your head. Some things, that's not, you can say that's not me. That's my hardwiring, maybe. But I am responsible for, continuing on with that thought.
Okay, I love it. Can you not think of anything if you want to?
Maybe like a couple times in my life, but also I haven't really forced myself many times either, just because it is so insanely difficult and it doesn't last for very long. I know I was doing kind of a meditation with a group during a Pilates class once, which I only took a few times. And I was kind of able to like completely, zone out, but it doesn't take long before something distracts me or.
Okay. Let's talk about reading. Do you like reading novels?
I love it. Yeah, I love it. As this art director I told once, when he asked me what kind of books I read self-help and romance. And he was like, the worst ones. So
All right. When you're reading a novel, how well can you think about what the characters and the surroundings might look like?
Like I'm immersed in it, really. Yeah, I guess, definitely don't picture it the way other people do, but like I feel like I know exactly what's going on and like I can follow along as if I'm kind of in it.
Okay. So, do you ever have that experience where you go and see a movie and you're like, oh, that person doesn't look like what they should look like? Do you have enough of that detail when you read a book that you can make that comparison?
I will say no on that one. I think that is kind of the only one where I'm like, no, I should have known something was wrong because I never could like identify with that thought. Like, especially I think the first time that kind of came about would be like the Twilight movies, Twilight books, because I read them, and all, I was like a teenager in its heyday. So, and if all the girls would say that, like, he's not like what I thought he would look like, and she's not what she thought. But to me, it's like, I was just kind of imagining a white dude with flippy hair. So he's white and
Right.
he's got flippy hair. That's right.
Right. Okay. What about audiobooks? Do you like audiobooks at all?
When I'm reading, it's like my own, I guess, whatever, how everybody else says it, my own little world. I could almost like compare it to a flashback almost, where you're just kind of like in the moment. Whereas an audiobook, I'm being entertained almost like I'm listening. I laugh a lot easier. Yeah, I think you're following along in a different way. Like I'm just listening. I'm not imagining.
Right. When you read, you get more immersed in it. It feels like you're in it, where
Yeah.
audiobook more just feels like you're being told a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. As a child, did you have an imaginary friend?
I did. And I still like, I don't have got maybe less than a dozen memories up until the time I was about like 13. And one of them is like my mother making me like break up with this imaginary friend. But it wasn't like, oh my gosh, so were people seeing like an imaginary friend? That's
Yeah.
bullshit. That's such goodness. Imaginary to me is like something that's not there, right? But they're like, imaginary friend. Okay, well, just to me, it was somebody that's not there, but that's really there. And it's like I always knew that like there wasn't anything there, but that was still my friend. Everybody else has imaginary friends, and just talk to them and lay them out a plate. And I don't have like too many specific memories of like hanging out with this imaginary friend, but I know that it became an issue to the point where we're in the front yard and my mom was like, "There's nothing there."
Did you talk to it? Did it talk to you?
Definitely. Yeah, that was my homeboy, man. That was my companion. Yeah.
So if it talked to you, what was that like? Where did that come from? Did it feel like you were just making it up, or did it feel like it was coming from somewhere?
Yeah. I think just making it up. Yeah.
Okay.
More or less like just feeling like what they would have said. I think it was probably more of like a comfort tactic. If you're by yourself a lot, you get through it if you self-talk. I think that was
Right.
probably my way of like self-talking, but without trying to look weird.
Okay. Did having aphantasia affect how you performed in school?
I'm going to say overall, yes, because like I said, I feel like it's cheating that they can see things, but I did pretty well. I will say I read a lot. I've got, an older brother who's pretty smart, and I've got a dad that just loves to explain things, and he, loves kind of like theorizing. So I will say I didn't really have to start trying until I got to college. I would like to say I was at a disadvantage, but perhaps not because the results were pretty good.
Okay. So if you had to memorize something for a test, what was your strategy or your process?
Usually if I write it down about twice or put it to a song, like scaphoid, lunette, piquetrum, pisiform, trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, hamate, something like that. Like that's probably about 75% right for the bones in your hand. But it's also been a decade since I tried to memorize them. Just kind of put it to a song.
Okay. What about math? Are you good at math?
I hated math until, I realized that started working in accounting. I can have perfect work because you know exactly what the answer should be. And I do not like math, but I can put it in, I can just make sure it's right. So that I do like it now.
Okay. Do you prefer the problems to be like number problems or do you like story problems?
I'd rather the numbers. As a high school teacher, them word problems, I'm telling you, the way that I show them is kind of like when I'm reading a book and I'm just scanning it, I'll just take a pen and I'll circle the numbers and then cross out everything else. And I'm like,
Right.
that's what you're doing. If it says some, that's the plus. You're good. Just they're trying to trick you. Don't let it happen.
Right. Right. It's another interesting thing I've been thinking about lately because I talked to someone with hyperphantasia and they said that the numbers freak them out. But if they turn it into a story problem, if they put it into something, then they can work with it better because it's all visual and they can see it. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm the opposite. Like story problems. When I was in college, my wife was helping me with math because I've always struggled with it. And, there's a whole bunch of number problems. And then down at the bottom, there's 2 story problems. I get down to the bottom and I close the book. She says, wait a minute, there's 2 more. And I said, yeah, but I can miss 2. That's not a big deal.
That's exactly the thinking right there.
Like I'm not going to try and do that. It drives me crazy.
Casualties of war just happened.
All right. You said before that you're a creative person. What is your creative process? How does that work for you?
Ooh, I guess I'd like to just kind of like do it. Like, I guess when it comes to painting, it's more of like, I don't actually paint like a vase or a flower. I like to kind of take the paint and like put it on there like in a chunky bit and smooth it out. And it's got all these different colors. And I just kind of like will paint the emotion, and I like come back like another day. Like if I was painting that I was angry, I like to come back when I'm like having a really good day and I'm feeling like really loved and do the contrast of it. When it comes to like wanting to like write a story or write a book, God, I would have so many books written, my very first and 89 more if I would actually sit down and make myself. But it's just a bunch of like, I don't know, like 20, 30 pages of a thought or a feeling one day. And then I email it to myself and I never touch it again. It's just like that a bunch of times.
Interesting. Okay. What does the phrase, where do you see yourself in 5 years mean to you?
Like a checklist, like goals. I don't think that I imagine into the future or like imagine into the past quite like other people do. I was taking some research study tests and they asked like 20 questions on the matter. And I was like, what? Like none of it applied to me.
Okay. We've kind of touched on some of these, but if there's any others that come to mind, if you could just highlight some upsides and some downsides that you've identified of having aphantasia.
I think it drives me to take action on a creative thought, and then it allows for more freedom from input to kind of really alter this creation at the end.
All right, last question. If you could wave a magic wand and get rid of your aphantasia, would you do it?
Would I still have the knowledge that I ever had it? If I still knew, I would, absolutely. Oh no, but see, I just had like this sudden like fear, like, no, but then everything's going to be so like scary and overwhelming. So maybe it is a trauma thing. And I mean, my body votes no, but my mind votes yes.
Oh, I love that.
What would you pick?
I would not get rid of it. I feel like it's so core to who I am that I don't know if I would truly be me without it. And I like being me. So I'm going to be me.
Aren't you curious if you could be like the Terminator?
I am super curious.
We could rule the world.
Yeah. I've always said, that if I could take it for a test drive, experience it for a little while without it being permanent, just see what it's like. Yeah, I'd love to do that. But again, the more I talk to people, the more I understand that it's not just this universal thing. Everybody's so individual. So it's not like I want to experience this thing. It would almost be like, I want to experience this person's mind.
Right.
And then this person's, and then this person's, because they're all so different. The more I talk to people, it's just all so different. So it's not just like this universal thing that you can turn on and off. It's very individual. So that complicates it
Very
as well.
cool.
All right. That is pretty much it, Rebecca. Is there anything else you would like to talk about that we may have missed or skipped over before we end?
No, it's been a pleasure. It's very thorough and great and very insightful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for your time and your answers. I've really enjoyed it. You have some very unique perspectives that I hadn't heard before. And I always appreciate that. And I just thank you again for coming on and taking this journey with us and putting it out there. And I really appreciate it.
Same to you. Thank you for your good work. You're doing the Lord's work out here.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.